Welcome back to Crafting a Meaningful Life. I'm Mary Crafts and I get to be your host. And as you know, I love doing this. And today we're going to talk about what's your first step? What's your first step into this new year? And what is it that you're committed to creating? How is it you're going to craft your life? This is episode 260 for me, and I'm still going strong. I don't feel like I am done with having a voice and a message because the thing is, I'm still crafting my life. I'm still walking through this journey. And so I still have things that I'm learning and growing and can share with you. I'm still listening to other people as they speak. I'm still reading great books and all full of knowledge that I can share with you. I'm going to talk a little bit today later about a specific book that I read and that I would like to recommend to you, but we'll get to that in a while. So this week, as I spoke with others about, how's your New Year's Eve going to come? What's your New Year's Day going to be? What are you going to do for New Year this year? Are you doing any travels? Do you have anything special planned for this? What's it look like? And I was literally trying to draw them into what I was talking about last week on my podcast of literally how to plan the next 365 days, because we just reviewed and took accounting of our last 365 days. So I was using that for conversation starters to last week. And I found that the new year is always filled with anticipation, either positive or negative. But they're all kind of just like, yeah, it's new year, new things. And I know today when I go to the gym, it will be packed. All of us who go to the gym on a regular basis hate January because we have all these wannabe committed gym goers that show up in January. Maybe they got a membership, but we know that by February, they will be gone. Well, my thought is not if they're listening to this podcast, because I'm going to provide the things that you may desire in your life to keep moving, to keep crafting, to keep reaching for something that's going to bring more out in you, more discovery of the best person that you are. And so even though they had New Year's filled with anticipation and excitement, there was also a lot of fear that they expressed, because people can express those things to me. I don't know why, that they just can. I just hold them in that safe place. A lot of people expressed worry. They seem to worry about so many things in the upcoming year. The economy, their family, their ability. They worried about the war in the Ukraine, and they worried about what was happening in Afghanistan, and they worried about mass shootings, and they worried about going outside their home. I mean, there is so much worry, which is akin to fear, going on about what's coming. To the point that I finally did a post late last night before we jumped into the new year. January 2nd is the new year because the first fell on Sunday. And my post said, "The fearless mind says, I don't know what's coming, but I will greet it joyfully when it arrives." And what the meaning of that is, that the fearless mind doesn't have time for worry. They don't waste time worrying about what's coming. They live right now. They live very intentionally. They know what they've set up for the next 365 days. So no matter what comes into it, they know the platform they're standing on, and they'll take it the day it comes. That doesn't mean we shouldn't plan ahead, but that's very different than worrying about what might be coming at us. My friends, that is the biggest waste of time that you will have this year. If you're doing any wasted time worrying about the future, it just isn't going to serve you. I want you to instead focus on being fearless, and it's one of the focuses of this year's podcast, as we learn how to actually become fearless. Because taking it from the point of having fear generally is the fear of the unknown. We worry about that. And the base of that is, I fear the future. I worry about the future because I don't know if I'm enough. And if you don't know, that's one of my favorite topics. You haven't been watching very long. Because I want to just grab all of you and shake you and say, dang, you are enough. I still have that fear. I walk into situations where I don't know if I'm enough. But then I remember, wait, I do know how to be fearless. I've been fearless in the past. I'm resilient. I have grit. I'm my own best champion. I do know how to do this. And then the fear begins to dissipate. I'm a real self-talk person in the positive. If I hear myself talking, those negative things to me, I just shut that down quick. Like, wait a minute. You're Mary Crafts, and you are fabulous, and you are always enough for whatever comes into your life. I know I can handle whatever comes. And that's what we're going to discover this year, is how to have that kind of mindset that you can handle whatever comes, whatever comes. Another one of our focus this year is going to be that on vulnerability. And you might think, dang, haven't we talked about that enough? I mean, is there anything left to say on vulnerability? There's always more to say on that, because I see it as one of the key principles in moving yourself into fearless living, into joyous living, into crafting your meaningful life in your relationships, is the willingness and desire to be vulnerable. Yeah. It's one of the best gifts that you can give yourself right now, this year. So how, it is only through vulnerability and fearlessness that you're going to be able to craft your meaningful life. And we do find that in our best connections with other people are the ones where we are fearless and we are vulnerable. You may wonder how those two things can exist at the same time. Being fearless and being vulnerable are actually connected intricately. And in our relationships, if you don't have one without the other, then it's going to not be the ultimate maximum of what you can do. So when I meet people and they talk about John and I and our relationship, they oftentimes mention something about the way that we look at each other, that it's different than it's ever been for me and him. And it's different than what they see in other people looking at themselves. In the photos we post, in our live conversations with people, when we look at each other, we don't just see the physical appearance. We see deep into each other. I am very vulnerable with John. I try and be completely vulnerable. And when I look at him, I see him, because he's been completely vulnerable with me. He showed me those places in him that are still hurt. He showed me those places in him where he still worries. He showed me those places in him that are not his best self. And yet I love him. What a safe place it is to be with someone who has shown you everything and realize that they still love you. That's a pretty amazing thing. And I know the same from him. I know when he looks at me, it's more than just seeing me and my physical appearance. He sees all of me because I've shared all of me. And he still loves me. When I look at him, when he looks at me, there's this sense of looking that's so deep, so right past the eyes, into the brain and into the heart, that it's such a safe place to know I have nothing more to share. Now, not that more things might not come up, but there's nothing in the past that I've been hiding from him and hope he never finds out. And I don't think there's much in his past that he's hiding that he hopes I never find out. Can you imagine a relationship like that? That it's such a safe place to be, and that creates a fearless experience by being vulnerable. One of the best things that we did when we first started dating was we read together the book The Seven Levels of Intimacy by Matthew Kelly. And that's the book I'm going to recommend to you. I absolutely loved this book. I've read a lot of self-help books. I've read a lot of books on motivation and understanding, the inner workings of your mind. But to understand a relationship and the 7 different levels of intimacy, there's no better book out there. It was written quite a long time ago, but I'll tell you, there's nothing better out there. So it's The 7 Levels of Intimacy by Matthew Kelly. And when I had wanted to read this together, but I didn't want to know quite how to approach it. So I just said, hi, I have this book. And I think if we want to have that really deep level of intimacy, it might be good for us to read this together out loud, take turns sharing as we go along. And of course, his immediate response was, oh yeah, I want a deep level of intimacy. I said, no, honey, not that kind of intimacy. Okay, it's not physical intimacy I'm talking about. I'm talking about the kind of intimacy where you know me and I know you. And where I am striving to be my best self, where I'm not just saying, well, take me as I am. This is how I am. But I'm striving to be my best self. And because of that, I want you to be your best self. Where it's not a competition between us. Where I genuinely want you to find and discover and be your best self. And when I say that in my podcast, it's because from reading this book, I use that phrase a lot, being your best self. And it came from this book. So I really want you to pick up a copy of this book. And even though I may talk about it from time to time, it's certainly going to enhance your experience. And if your partner says, no, I really don't want to read that, or I don't think we have time to read that together, maybe I'll read it on my own. And then share with him your why. I think it's a big thing for us. And I want to have a closer, more intimate relationship with you. And that's why I want this. It's pretty hard to say back to somebody, well, I don't want that. So do your best to engage with your partner, to include them on this journey of the 7 levels of intimacy. We're going to talk about some of them now so you get an idea of what I'm talking about. But I will tell you that it's one of the best things we ever did. And now I feel like we've dabbled down there in level 7, but we have actually experienced 6 for sure. So the first level of intimacy in a relationship when you're communicating with somebody is what he calls the cliche area. And you almost, when you read this, you laugh out loud because you can actually hear yourself talking like that to someone. And the cliche is just something that you always say to somebody, like, how you doing? That's a cliche. I mean, how many times in your life have you heard, how you doing? Like a million? Everybody knows this cliche. And the response back is another cliche. I'm doing fine. I'm doing good. I'm not. Those are cliche levels of communicating. Or for me, it might be like, we just had this horrendous snowstorm here in Utah. And it might be, how about that weather? And everybody rolls their eyes and go, yeah, what up? Or if it's really hot in the summer, how about that weather? Oh, it's hot. Yeah. That's a cliche. And you know just how to respond to it. And it keeps you on this level. Another thing that I use here in Utah is, how about those jazz? If there's a lull in the conversation and it's noticeable, I just bump out with that. And it's so obvious that it's a cliche. And it's so obvious that it's not my normal level of communication. I get everybody laughing. Yeah, how about those jazz? And then we can jump into something different. By the way, the Jazz are 500, which means they have half losses, half wins. So half the time I'm ecstatic and half the time I'm like, I feel so bad for the team. I know they wanted to win. They gave their all. Blah, blah. But those are cliches that we use. They break the ice. They are just something we use every day just to make a small connection with people. And we all know how to say them and respond. And that's all the cliche is. And it's also a safe place. Cliches are safe. You didn't ask anything that you don't want to know, and you gave people a safe place to respond to you. But they keep people at arm's length. They don't invite people into your space. They don't invite people into a relationship with you. And they're actually not designed for a deep relationship. We have them in place for those relationships that are on that level. Maybe it's somebody at work. Maybe it's somebody you see in your apartment building. Maybe it's somebody at the grocery store. I've never seen them before, probably never going to see them again, and really are not taking energy from you. They're just nice cliches. And they're not for relationships that warrant greater depth. What if the only thing you communicated with your spouse on was the cliche level? They come home from work. How was your day? Good. What are we having for dinner? I don't know yet. They're just meant to be at that level. And I truly hope that you have or want something different. John and I use this level of relationship a lot. First, we start the conversation with checking in. We don't start with, so tell me about your mother complex. No way. We start with the cliche. And sometimes we just want to stay in the cliche level 1, because it's so fun. There's not work involved. All of us need a bit of that. I've mentioned this before. It's what we call carefree timelessness, where we don't care that we have this in-depth discussion, but we just have fun together. And we actually design time that we go and just have that carefree timelessness. Let's go for a walk and not talk about anything. Okay? Let's just sit in front of the TV and let's just watch this, history documentary on the ancient aliens that built the earth. I mean, just, something, just timelessness, just to let our souls unwind. But it's not where you want to stay. It's not where you want your life to be, with your partner, with your children, and with probably a lot of people. So the second level of intimacy is what's known as the fact level, where you share facts. And the people love the facts who are list makers, like me, who do a lot. So when someone says to you, how was your day? You say, fine. And then they say the second level, which is the fact level. Well, what did you do? Bing, I brighten up. Oh, I get to give an accounting of what I did. And so I just start, this, and then I this, and then I did this, and then that, and then that, and that is a fact level. So yes, there's some sharing there. There's some ability to look into my life and get a picture of my life. But if you want to go beyond the fact level, then you share with, and I really enjoyed that when I did that particular piece, because I felt like I was of genuine service. And so then you get a little peek behind the facts into something else. And the fact level can actually give us a platform to begin sharing. So I love the fact level because it's where I start almost always. So, blah, and then blah, and then I felt about that, or what that created for me. It opens up other opportunities for me to step in. So don't shy away from the fact level. Embrace the fact level as your platform to move into a deeper, more intimate relationship. Yeah, and that's what the third level is. But the biggest problem with the fact level is that if you know the facts and only the facts, you can be very judgmental. When I start being judgmental about something or someone, it's because I only know the facts. On the fact level is where you might begin to gossip or be judgmental. Because on the fact level, well, you might know that someone hasn't shown up for work for 5 days and they're a slacker. Oh, That was a judgment on my part. The fact was they haven't shown up for work for 5 days. It was my judgment that created them as a slacker. But what if I knew the circumstances behind not coming to work for 5 days? What if their mother was on her deathbed and these were the last 5 days they were going to have with her? Would I view this person as a slacker? No. So be careful with the fact level, because it can create a lot of judgment. And we're always looking for the circumstances behind the facts. My mission of oneness, and as you know all about that if you've watched more than 1 or 2 episodes, my mission of oneness no longer gives me space to be judgmental. Because if I am one with someone, then I am them and they are me. And I seek to understand the circumstances. And I seek to look beyond the facts. It's the level where oneness begins. Lack of judgment in my life is one of the greatest things in helping me be vulnerable, because I'm seeking and I'm looking and willing to share me. And being non-judgmental gives me a lot of fearlessness, believe it or not, because we fear what we don't know. But if we're a seeker of information and circumstances beyond facts, I can be fearless, because I'm going to find out what the situation is and the circumstances, not just the facts where I would live in judgment. The third level starts into my favorite spot, and that's the level of opinions. So I love this level because I love to share my opinion on just about everything. I remember the first time I was on and asked to be on a board of directors of someplace else other than my original company. And I was like so excited until I showed up in the boardroom. And then I was full of fear. I don't want to share my opinion. I don't want to be noticed. I just want to stay here in my small self. And I'm just going to use a lot of cliches like, oh, how's everyone? How y'all doing? Or I'm going to give facts. I can give facts really well if I'm asked upon. So, Mary, what's happening in the hospitality world now that we are in COVID? Oh, I can give all those facts. I know all about that. Call on me for the facts. But if someone asks an opinion, I have to be fearless to step forward in that opinion. So as I talked about this level of opinions, it's why I love this so much is because it's where I finally have the opportunity for people to get to know me. I'm offering not cliches, not facts, but my opinion. And that's opening up, and people can see me, and they learn about me. And they learn to either accept me or reject me. But whatever it is, it's real. Opinions are the first level where you get to be vulnerable. And I love being vulnerable. You know that. I love opening up. And here's my opinion. It's also the place of great learning. Because without the level of opinions and sharing opinions, I really know very little about the other person. But when I hear them and their opinion about someone, not a cliche, not a fact, but their actual personal opinion, I learn something about them. So it's my new opportunity for wisdom. I talk to a lot of people who offer me their opinions and share what their thoughts are on something. And if I really want to learn and grow, what better place than listening to the opinions of others? Doesn't mean they're going to be mine, but I learn from listening. However, this level of opinion brings up a lot of fear. And that's why it's so important that we learn to be fearless so we can step in and embrace the level of opinions. So one, when we start sharing our opinions, we kind of want them to be the same as everyone else. We want everyone else in the room to go, yeah, I get that. Nod their head. We don't want anyone to go, what? What are you talking about, Mary? And so we have this fear that we're not going to be the same, that we may not be accepted. Now, some people choose opinions that they know are not going to be what others are, and they know are not going to be accepted just to get attention. They might say, well, I really love that the world is flat. And you don't think they get attention? They totally do, but for the wrong reason. Just to get attention doesn't make it your opinion. The other thing that people fear when they share their opinion is they fear conflict. In your family, have you ever shared different opinions and that just blew up in a big conflict? They're afraid of that. And so they don't want to step into this most important level of offering your opinion about something. And it's either results in anger or distance. That was the family that I raised with my husband and with my three children. That every time we had a difference of opinion, that meant conflict or distance. I wanted to avoid that like the plague. And so I became the biggest peacemaker you ever met. I just was constantly like, oh, that sounds awesome. Well, now let's talk about next week when we're going to blah, 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 blah. Change the subject is a big coping mechanism of a peacemaker in an opinion situation. And another coping mechanism of a peacemaker in conflict is to then say, oh, yeah, I totally understand that. And yeah, we're going to probably do it that way. Placate, move them right over the top, and then do something completely different. How out of integrity is that? So opinions can be a very scary place. And oftentimes we'll offer an opinion, oh, I don't think this, and then we back right out. The fear gets a hold of us and we back right out. I try and straddle the line sometimes between offering my opinion and just backing out and shutting up. So this level of opinion has a lot of fear involved. And when you go to embrace it, I want you to be ready and monitor yourself, monitor others, how they're doing it. Don't get hooked in when they're sharing their opinions and they have to be right. Don't get hooked into that. Don't engage them on that level of anger. Just offer your opinion and know that your opinion works for you, even though it doesn't work for them. That's okay. Offering opinions does not include trying to convince you that I am right. That's not an opinion. That's a judgment. You should believe as I believe. That's not what opinions are. That's open sharing of love. We all want to be accepted. But the way to do that is to first accept others and their opinions. To open this up and to keep this in safe space, what I call, is to accept others' opinions as of value. I get that. I appreciate you sharing that. I understand. So where did that come from? Where'd that opinion come from? Tell me a little about how you feel about that opinion. And begin to let them know that this is a safe place for them to offer their opinion. And guess what? They'll give you, usually, a safe place to offer yours, even if they're vastly, vastly different. And the reason that is because I respect myself and I honor myself. And I respect them and I honor them. I was pondering just the other day about situations from my childhood and thought about how many different times that people disrespected me. And I really kind of got a little miffed about it. I was so disrespected. Why was that? And it came to me so clear. I was disrespected because I disrespected myself. If you want to be respected and honored, you must first, and I don't use must very often, but you must first claim the honor and respect yourself. And you will find that then others are way more likely to give that to you. So no matter what your opinion is, I want you to honor it and I want you to respect yourself for it. And thus in turn, give it to others. If I choose to be the best version of myself, of course I want that for you. And people feel that. John and I have different opinions on lots of different things. But I don't have to be right. And he doesn't have to be right. He doesn't need to make me wrong. And I don't need to make him wrong. We just listen. And then I will also often follow up back with, so tell me about that. Or where did those thoughts come from? What went on that you really, that's your opinion? And I really want to delve deeper into where someone's opinion came from. But we now have a common goal in our relationship. And I think that's one of the critical pieces that I want you to establish are relationships where you have the common goal. And the common goal is I'm going to be my very best self. I'm working all the time for that. And I want that for you. Find those relationships where that is the same, where they are looking for their very best version of themselves. And so they want that for you. The competition goes away. The judgment goes away. The acceptance is universal. Critical pieces in your life. There are 4 more levels to this. We don't have time to talk about them today. We'll save those for another time. But the 4th level is when you share your hopes and dreams. John and I love this level. Okay, just love it. And the fifth level is when we actually share feelings, not facts, not opinions, not hopes and dreams, but feelings of how I really feel about that. Sometimes when John might do something and I immediately withdraw, he'll say, "What's going on? What are you feeling?" And I stop just a minute and I look inside, like I was feeling abandoned. Where'd that come from? Did that come from me? And you realize immediately, no, you've never abandoned me, John. You've always been right here beside me, putting the wind under my wings. Okay. So where did that come from? In the past, when people said, I need to go out and get a breath of fresh air, that didn't mean I need to go out and get a breath of fresh air. That meant I need a break from you. Abandonment. He goes, is that what I'm doing? I'm like, no, you literally do need a breath of fresh air. You love the outdoors. When you're cooped inside all day, you go a little stir crazy. And if you need a break from me, well, actually, I don't know because you've never needed that. But I'm assuming you'll go to the bathroom. So I love that level where we get to share honest feelings. And the 6th level is when we share faults, our fears, and our failures. When you can do that with another individual, you are on one of the most deepest levels of intimacy. And John and I have done that. And then the 7th level is the one that's going to be hard for you to understand until we take the deep dive. And that is when we share our legitimate needs. So not the superficial needs. I need this. I need. That's the needs of a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old in their tantrum. I need this. But when you share legitimate needs, I need to be wrapped with you. I need to feel your closeness. I need to take care of my physical needs. Those are legitimate needs that you're sharing with someone and asking for their help. It's where you are you and I am me, and we are the same. It's oneness. So I want you to think about for just a minute as we look to close. What is your level of relationships with your significant other, with your children, with your parents, with your neighbors, with people at work? Just write down those significant relationships. And what level are you at? Are you at levels that are going to shift you from one to another? Now that you think about all you say to your husband or wife are cliches, you're never going to be close. Done. Your marriage is going to end up pretty unhappy. And who knows, you may look for someone else where you can achieve that. Don't let that happen to you. Move past that. Are you at the fact level? You're pretty good at sharing facts, but nothing behind that. Or are you on the opinion level where you can actually share your opinions in a safe place? Have you become fearless? And am I going to level up? What am I going to ask of myself in the next 365 days? Before I close, I think my time's almost up. Oh, so I'm sorry. I'll try and move through this quick. I want to share some thoughts on vulnerability because I talked about that at the beginning as one of the things we were going to cover today. I often talk about the passageway from living a fear-based life to a love-based life. And without a doubt, I know what the first step is into that. If you want to start having a better relationship with others, if you want to start loving yourself, if you want to learn to be fearless, if you want to be your very best self, you must take the first step in the passageway. And the first step is vulnerability. This is where you want to live if you want acceptance, because people love to connect with people who are honest and they can trust, and they know that by your level of vulnerability, what you're willing to share about you with them. This is something for you to pay attention to if you want love. People do not want to be in love with someone who's hiding and you don't know who they are. People want to be in love with people who are willing to open up and be vulnerable. It will draw love into your life like nothing else and create a fearlessness in you. When you see others loving you in spite of yourself, and what you learn is that they love you because of yourself, you become more filled with courage and bravery and fearlessness. You learn that if you share and are vulnerable, that you can be loved for just who you are, not for the person you've made up. What good is it to be loved as that person? None. But you learn to love yourself when you're willing to be vulnerable and look inside with yourself. In my book, I talk about the imposter syndrome. And being vulnerable is the best way out of the imposter syndrome, because the imposter believes that he's making up this person to show the world, rather than being completely who they are and vulnerable and show that person to the world. Then you are not an imposter. You're a real person. It's one of my, I have a whole chapter on the imposter syndrome, and I have a whole chapter on that the healing starts when the hiding stops. There's no growth for you if you're hiding. Time to get vulnerable. I got vulnerable with John on our this whole podcast, is it about John? I got vulnerable with John on our third date. And we were sitting in Market Street Oyster Bar, and we were at a booth, and I had a sense that we were going to go farther. But if we were, I didn't want to get closer to him and begin to fall in love with him if he wasn't able to accept all of me. So I pulled out my phone, and on the third date, showed a photo of me to John at 284 pounds. I said, this is me. The experiences of that woman are me. The strength of that woman are me. And either you're okay with that, or it's been really wonderful to share some time with you. I said, because it's not just that now you get to see this beautiful person covered up with clothes. You know, at some point in time, if like we get naked, I don't have the most beautiful body. Somebody that's always been thin all their life. Somebody who's always been toned and exercised their whole life. I look different. And I just ripped open the vulnerability and said, so either you can accept me and all of me, or I wish you good luck. And he, of course, was in shock because he had no idea. And he said, I had no idea. I mean, because you're like so beautiful and so fit and so healthy. But I see you come with baggage. And guess what? So do I. And as the days go on, I'm sure you'll see mine. And as long as we are still striving to be our best self, we can be our best self for each other. That doesn't matter to me. And so we had a fourth date. And now here we are, like close to 2 years later. And I've been exclusive. I've been committed. And so has he. Because we've been vulnerable. Do you desire to be fearless? To let go of fear? Do you desire to be your own champion, your own hero? Let it begin with vulnerability. Do a check. How vulnerable am I with people? What am I hiding from my spouse or my boyfriend or my children? If relationships are the goal, then strive not to change other people, but strive to be the best version of you and be committed to helping your companion be their best version. Remember, you are fearless and you are their hero. Spend time evaluating your level of vulnerability. Write it down if you want to. Record it somewhere. Take a picture of you and look at the picture. This is a great way. And look into your eyes. What level of vulnerability do you have with yourself? Can you stare deeply at yourself? Can you turn the camera inside and look? If you can look at yourself openly and honestly, chances are you can turn it outward for the world to see. And next week, we're going to talk about being fearless is a resilient mind. Someone who's learned to bounce back and knows they can. Damn straight, you're fearless. Until next time, let's work on this. Let's commit to this. Let's craft our meaningful life. Namaste.
Listen to the full podcast today and subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, and more. Crafting a Meaningful Life with Mary Crafts.